All right. Hey, everybody. Dr. Grant here. And today we're going to be talking about specifically how to eliminate decreased motivation naturally. Now, when it comes to motivation, this is something that's very common amongst people with ADHD, but a lot of people in general, it's going to be an issue. And whenever I think about, decreased motivation, I have to think about it from a perspective of what's going on internally. What are some imbalances that are going on of why you have that lack of motivation? And so whenever I am working with someone, it really requires understanding really what's going on. And probably one of the big ones that I would say is definitely looking at micronutriences. So looking at micronutriences really will help us identify possibly a lot of reasons of really the lack of motivation that's going on here. And so I took some case studies together and put together like really kind of the ones that I see are the particular micronutrients that really will contribute to probably a decrease in motivation for you specifically. And you can see in this case, this person, individual, some of his B vitamins, his B3 specifically, as well as his vitamin B5, and also his vitamin D levels were low. His vitamin K2 and K1 were definitely low. So one of the biggest things that I think of is definitely B vitamins are a big critical importance when it comes to lack of motivation. When those levels are low, we do know that impacts our mental health. It does impact our energy, but it also can impact motivation. And the reason being is because it is a very important pathway for helping for the dopamine pathway to, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and so forth. And as you know, dopamine is very important to help with improving definitely motivation and drive, but it's also important for serotonin as well. And something like vitamin B6 is a very critical one that we need to be using in because it does help convert from L-DOPA to dopamine or even 5-HTP to also serotonin. So adding something like a B complex when we do see these levels being low is going to help cover a lot of the different B vitamins. They're activated B vitamins. Obviously, adding vitamin D can also impact your energy, but also motivation when those levels are low, just like how this patient was. In this case, his vitamin D3 levels were low. And of course, adding vitamin K2 along with the vitamin D3 is going to be important because you don't want to be doing something too high when you have other levels are low, like vitamin K2. It's important to take those both together. Now, taking it another step further is looking at things like minerals that could be definitely low that are also impacting your lack of motivation as well. And what I see commonly is something like zinc, as well as even copper. Copper and zinc are very good to take together, and typically we will see a lot of times these both being low. And zinc plays a really critical role also for neurotransmitters, things for helping with dopamine, serotonin as well, and same with copper. And so you could see that if you're deficient in this and it's not helping building and modulating different neurotransmitters, this can definitely impact it. So adding something like copper and zinc, if you're deficient in it, is going to help with the motivation. And it certainly did for this patient because they were so deficient in this area. You can also calcium. Now, this might not apply too much, but I just wanted to point out here because it was here. I also want to make sure that we're checking every different micronutrient that could possibly be deficient. Calcium is very important for overall health. And so if we see that depleted, that's something we would want to implement as well. Now, taking another step further here is looking at amino acids. Amino acids are very, very important for neurotransmitters, and it's very important for the pathway to helping with motivation for different brain chemistry, such as dopamine. So in this case, this person's glutamine levels were low, and also coenzyme CoQ10 levels were definitely depleted too. CoQ10 has a lot to do with our energy, to implement a lot of energy in cells. And so definitely want to be make sure you implement that, because part of maybe your lack of motivation could be because you also have low energy too. And a lot of people overthink that and kind of bypass it, but it's something that definitely needs to be addressed. And so in this case, for this patient, their CoQ10 levels were low. That helps with ATP. It helps with different cells in our body, the mitochondria and stuff like that. So it's very, very important to add something like CoQ10. And then obviously L-glutamine is going to be something also really important to implement when we see that low, because glutamine does help with also different neurotransmitters as well. Now, looking at omegas. Omegas plays a role for helping improving our brain health. And if we are deficient, just like this person was with their EPA levels, and also not so great on their DPA levels, you're definitely wanting to add omega-3s because it does help with inflammation, but it also helps protect the brain and feeding the brain and the nutrients that it needs. So when we see this low, this is definitely could be a factor of the depletion of lack of motivation going on there. Now, taking it another step further. So now that we talked about the micronutrients, what's the next layer that usually I'm thinking of when there's a possibility of lack of motivation, how we can use something naturally to help improve this? Another thing that I want to look at is definitely hormones. Hormones definitely play a huge critical role in your mood, but also your motivation. And when you think about ADHD, you probably have never really gotten hormones really tested. It's because you probably done a questionnaire and have been just put on different medications, but never actually addressed of the possibility of hormones. And that's something that I like addressing because it does impact our motivation significantly. So one of the biggest ones that I do like to test, especially adults with ADHD, is testing cortisol levels. And cortisol has everything to do with energy. You want to make sure your cortisol levels are high very first thing in the morning, and then kind of taper off throughout the day, and definitely lowest at night, so it keeps you asleep. But if they are too depleted, it's not only going to impact your energy, but also will impact your focus and your motivation throughout the day. So with this person, you could see they were so depleted, like right in the blue. They're so depleted in this circumstance, and they had not only low energy, but also significantly lack of motivation. And something just as simple as addressing this made all the difference for them by adding some supportive adrenals. So sometimes I'll use adrenal support or adrenal desiccated, depending on the circumstance. But taking it first thing in the morning and then mid afternoon really improved not only the motivation, but also their focus and energy throughout the day because they were so depleted in this area. It's like a night and day difference. Now, other hormones that are really important, like with this patient of mine, we're dealing with mood swings, confused, lack of motivation, and depression. And, when you test hormones and you find things like this person where the progesterone levels were really low, as well as their DHEA levels were low, which helps improve testosterone and estradiol. That's what help builds those. So in this case, it makes sense of why they were feeling mood swings, feeling more depressed, lack of motivation, because they don't have the adequate amount of balanced hormones. So in this case, we want to make sure we're adding and supporting those imbalances that are going on there. So adding something like a natural progesterone cream. I usually don't like going synthetic unless we need to, because it's going to be a little dangerous, especially if you have family history with cancer and stuff like that. So we do a little bit more natural stuff to help improve that. And again, to improve the progesterone levels. And then of course, adding DHEA here to improve the DHEA levels. And just having that alone not only helped with the mood swings, but also helped with the lack of motivation and also the depression. Now, another big layer that I think is really important is definitely talking about the brain chemistry. So brain chemistry right here is something that I think needs to definitely be addressed, because when we think about motivation, especially for people with ADHD, we think of dopamine, right? Lack of dopamine means lack of motivation and focus. But it's not always the case, because you also can't forget about the serotonin pathway. Serotonin pathway is actually what makes us happy, right? If the serotonin levels are low, you're going to feel more depressed, and that's also going to contribute to lack of motivation as well. Same with the dopamine, which we already talked about. So with this person, recently it was crazy seeing a lot of these different levels. Sorry, this one right here. Crazy to see all the different depletions that they were experiencing. You could see he was low on basically everything. No wonder he felt so just low on motivation, lack of motivation, lack of focus, lack of drive, lack of just happiness. He just was not feeling right. And so when we ran and looked at their neurotransmitters and different amino acids and saw that these were all depleted, it made sense. But we could actually finally target what we needed to address. So you could see just from the top PA. So if we look at really specifically the PA pathway, that is very beginning of the dopamine pathway to help improve dopamine levels. So you want to make sure you're addressing each one of those if you're in this situation. So adding D-L-phenylalanine to help with the PA levels. And then he had low tyrosine levels, tryptamine, dopamine. So I'd add something like DopaBoost, which has a combination of tyrosine. It also has L-Dopa. It has these ways to improve dopamine as well as also tyrosine, which is very important. Then going down more further down the line, I'm not going to go through every single one, but the kind of bigger ones, low norepinephrine and epinephrine. L-theanine is going to help improve those levels. L-theanine also does help with improve dopamine as well as serotonin. Then going even further, his tryptamine and serotonin levels were also low. And I add something 5-HTP and L-tryptophan to improve both of those levels. And then on top of that is his glutamate levels were low, and as well his glycine levels and his GABA, which all have to do a lot with motivation, drive, mood. And so adding L-glutamine and glycine is really important. The last one I'll mention here is histamine. Histamine is actually a driver to help improve all these different neurotransmitters. So adding something like L-histidine really is going to make a difference. So just adjusting all of these, like I just recently was just talking to him, like to him, it was like a night and day difference, complete change of what he was been trying to do for the past 15 years with his ADHD. And it's because he was so deficient and it was never identified. But I mean, imagine if you could identify this for you of how that could improve your life because you're actually finally targeting what is the root cause versus just guessing and just trying random supplements. And this is how you make natural medicine work for you. This is how you actually tackle the lack of motivation or the lack of focus and lack of energy that you experience with your ADHD is actually investigating first. And then you could see clearly what is deficient. What do you need to be actually improving on? And so kind of like I said, like with motivation, it's important to look at both pathways, serotonin, dopamine, as well as the GABA pathway. All those could contribute to lack of motivation. And in this person's case, he was deficient in all three. So that's why it's so important. So if you would like to, find out this information for your own lack of motivation and focus issues, then really, what I'm offering is an opportunity to be able to work with me so I can actually spend time with you to jump on a consultation to really identify more of your medical history so I can actually decide what kind of lab testing would be the best for you so we can actually identify the root causes of those issues. And it really does require that further investigation. And, I've spent thousands of dollars on my medical education and continuing education to figure this out on my own, but you don't need to do that. I already did that heavy lifting for you. And really what I'm offering is a 45-minute one-on-one personalized, strategized session, which is $750 value. On top of that, you get a focused mind questionnaire assessment that really kind of looks at the imbalances that are going on as far as for helping me determine what lab testing would be the best. And also you get access to our nutrition and lifestyle tracking app. This is a $300 value. So that way you could track your nutrients and lifestyles. And this really helps implement good routines. So, and also if you do purchase today, I give you access to my ADHD health course. That's a $297 value. So well over $1,500 of value, but you get it all for just $297. So all you got to do to be able to book that consultation and get everything I just mentioned, you just click on the link in the description below. Once you click on the link in the description below, you'll purchase. Once you purchase, then you will book your consultation. You'll pick your date and time. Once you pick your date and time, then it's important to fill out your information so I can kind of look over that. And then, of course, you'll come to this landing page and then you'll check your email. There's two emails. There's one of confirming your appointment. That's going to have the Zoom link to jump our appointment, whatever date you scheduled. And then the second is to activate your Practice Better account. This is really important because this is how you get access to the Nutrition Lifestyle app where you can start implementing foods and nutriences and lifestyle stuff. You can even have it tracked to your Fitbit. It's really, really, really powerful. And also to upload any past labs you've done in the last year. So I can look at that over that beforehand, any standard labs that you've done. And then also make sure to block out the time for 45 minutes to 60 minutes. Sometimes we'll go a full hour if we need to, based off how many questions you do have. And then of course, show up early. So if you really want my help to finally tackle your ADHD and your lack of motivation, this is the next step to do. This is what I do to help people, is just booking that consultation so I can take the time to look at your medical history to determine what are the imbalances going on. What do we actually need to, what kind of lab testing do we need to implement, and what action plan to put together. So again, go ahead and click on that link in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Thanks. Bye.